Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I made the masks for my family for our COVID lockdown. As you can see, I'm using the pattern from the Twig and Tail website. I'll try and remember to have the link down below. You have to sign up, give them your email address and they'll send you the pattern, and then you print it out. As you can see, it's about 30 pages, so just be aware of that. And there's two types of masks. One is a pleated and one is a face and nose mask. The pattern fabrics I'm using are quilting fabric. The weave is nice and tight. The plain fabric is cotton broadcloth, and that'll be for the pocket or the backing of the mask. I'm also using bias binding for ear loops, as it's so difficult to get elastic in New Zealand at the moment. And if you want nose wires, I'm using half pipe cleaner with the ends folded over. Here I'm reading the instructions, and there's a box that you can measure to check that you've printed it out to scale, which I've just done. Then it's important to make sure that you cut out the right pattern, obviously, or trace it, which I've also done. So there's three big pieces to cut out, the outside of the mask, the pocket, and the side bits. It looks pretty boring, but you know, it's cutting out a pattern, so it's never exciting. Always make sure you read your instructions. I usually don't, but this is a new one, so I decided it was probably a good idea, and it really was. What I thought was complicated was actually a really simple design. The pattern itself shows you how to measure the face of the person you're making it for to get the correct fit. It even tells you how long to make the ear loops. Sometimes I had to chop and change. For example, my daughter had the small sized mask, but the ear loops for the medium size one, and things like that. But it really is a simple pattern. I'd thoroughly recommend this one if you want to have a go at making. Working out your pattern placement, of course, is important, making sure you use the fabric for the most effective way. I didn't worry too much about matching up the designs because, hey, it's a mask, doesn't really matter. but you might want to if you're using something like a check or a stripe or something like that, so that's always something to think about. Let's see if we can spot the woman who's lost her fabric scissors and is reduced to using craft and kitchen scissors. Any guesses? Place your answer down in the comments below. Now I need to attach the ear loops. See if you can spot what I did wrong. Three, two, one. Put them on the wrong side of the fabric. As it turns out, the angles that I used to record the filming of my the first mask weren't that great, so I've cut those out, and now I'm going to show you how I make another 3. These ones I've actually made differently. After talking to my mother, we realised that we didn't actually need the pocket, so they're just an outer layer and a lining, which also makes them reversible if you want to get really fancy. So these are still for my son, and the different ones. He loved this fabric. I didn't think he would, but he wears it with pride. 13 years old, doesn't care. Got to admire that in a lad. Shortly you will see what happens when I refer to my brain as brain fart. I just at this point lost the ability to reason. I couldn't work out which way to cut the fabric to get the grain correct. I stabbed myself with a pin, and I didn't even realise until now that the first pin I'd put in hadn't actually gone through. I seriously just stopped being able to think rationally at this point. And then, as always, it just came back and I was fine. Oh, and see, I bought myself a new pair of fabric scissors, which I really like. These ones are nice, they're smooth and they're good weight. And I got them from Lincraft for $25 down from $45, which I thought was a pretty good score. since I was making the linings all the same and I needed 6 pieces, I decided to cut them out in 2 lots of 3, so there's no need for you to see the whole lot. I just showed you cutting out one because, you know, well, I wanted to bore you a little bit longer. I'm getting good at that. Oh, I probably should have mentioned too, with making the reversible masks like this, you actually cut out all of the pieces from the main facing piece. You don't do any other lining pieces or anything like that, so it's all 4 pieces of the same thing. Now I'm cutting out the bias binding for the straps, which I think from memory was about 14.5 centimetres long. This is just how you pin the ear loops onto the outer shell. You pin them to the right side so that when they're sewn up, they're actually tucked in between the layers of fabric. I'm stitching the masks together here, just the inside and the outside part. So you follow the line, obviously you do that. Now what I'm about to do is a way of saving cotton. When you have several pieces that you need to stitch, just when you finish the first piece, do a few stitches and then add the next piece in, as you can see, just like that, and you run on and you get this tiny little bit of cotton usage as you're doing it. So I'm about to start putting that's the internal panel. Now I'm about to start adding the stitching up the external panels. So as you can see, that just saves you so much time and cotton, and it's a good handy tip that my mother taught me. She probably learned that from her mother, who was a dressmaker. So there you go. So to save the cotton, I'm just snipping them while I've got the last piece still in the machine, and then once I've got them all separated out, I'll start stitching the ear loops on, which are already pinned, and it'll just take me a few minutes to get through those, and I'm just doing that now. And away we go. What I'm doing here is just clipping the curve. You do that with any curved seam. It just helps it to sit flat a little bit nicer with the finished product. So you go along every inch or so, or centimetre, and you cut out a triangle up to or just before the seam, not over it for obvious reasons. And once I've finished doing that, it will look like this. I'll do that with all 6 pieces. The pattern calls for you to iron the seams open. After speaking to my mother, she suggested that iron 1 lot of seams one way and 1 lot of seams the other way, so they are going in opposite directions when you join them together. I'll demonstrate that in a minute, but this is just how I'm ironing the seam to the side, and there you can see how it looks. And I did that with the other one as well, the lining. So this is the lining, and then you join them together, good side together, so you join them inside out is the easiest way to explain it. So I'll just be demonstrating how the seams go together now. binding seam goes one way and the facing seam goes the other way. Make sure you tuck the ear loops in so that when you join them together and stitch them up, the ear loops are on the outside. When you're stitching them together, remember to leave a gap to turn them in the right way. I'm really bad at leaving a small gap, so make sure you leave a decent sized gap. And also be careful going over the centre seams because it can be a bit bulky. You may need to slow down to make sure that you don't get that all rumpled, which will make it very difficult to put on. At this point I realised that my battery was going flat on my camera, so I quickly decided to finish one for you. Right now I'm clipping the corners. Again, it's a way to make sure that the mask sits flat when it's in the right way. Unfortunately I'd left the hole too small, so I had to pick it back so that it was big enough, but again I still made it too small, so here's me struggling to get all the mask through the tiny hole. Once you've got it in the right way, you need to use something to press the corners out. I'm using round tip scissors so that I poke through the stitching. And do that in each corner to make sure, and then you hold it flat. Now I'm about to top stitch it. This will actually close up the hole where you turned it in the right way, and again will ensure that it sits nicely. You should iron it first, but obviously as my battery was going flat I didn't have time for that. This is also the point where you would insert the pipe cleaner to give it a nose wire. You'd put that at the top of the mask in the centre between the two layers, and the top stitching would help it to stay in place. I haven't made one like that yet, but I will be doing that soon. Let me know if you'd like to see me do that. And it's done. Just needs an iron and a wash at 60 degrees and it's ready. Alright, so you done? Yes. Smile for the camera.
No.
Smile.
Die.
Smile.
Die.
Smile.
Die.
Love you, Mummy.
No, you don't. No, I don't.
Wave to the camera.
No.
Wave to all. Wave to Annie Cave.
No. I hate you so much.
If you've got any questions or anything you'd like to know, feel free to ask down below and I'll see if I can help.